Hello. All right, so super happy to be here. My name's Artem. Waiting for the slides, just a moment. Oh, yep. Yeah, for some reason they're at the end, so let me just click through all of them. All right, so yeah, my name's Artem. A bit of background about me. I was a mathematician for about 10 years, but around 2016 I got interested in crypto, and since then, yeah, it slowly consumed my life, and around 3 years ago I joined cyber.Fund as a head of research. Today I'm going to talk about cybereconomy. It's a concept that we have internally, and it's a concept that we use to understand what's happening with the world, with our society, how it evolves, right? But before I jump into our thesis about cybereconomy, let me tell you a little bit about our fund. So the first point is that we're very much thesis-driven, and this is, our founders. They have been operating in crypto since 2014, investing, founding, building towards the cybernetic economy, this vision that I'm going to talk about. Second point is that we're investors, and we funded more than 200 startups, including Genesis investments in Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, Celestia, Eigenlayer, and many others. We're also founders and builders. We built Lido and P2P staking solutions with 40 billion in TVL. And yeah, so today what we're doing, we're deploying around 40 million per year with a focus on 3 technologies: crypto, AI, and robotics. And the reason is because these technologies will drive the next phase of capitalism. Okay? So let me now turn to cybereconomy, right? What is it? First of all, the definition is that it is a system of resource allocation, and actually any economy is a system of resource allocation. But cybernetic economy has 2 characterizations. One is that it is self-regulating, that's why it's cybernetic. And the second is that it is hyper-efficient. That's the second one. And we truly believe that that's going to be the next phase after capitalism. So I would say that this in part is an answer to many challenges that we have in our current system of capitalism, okay? And today I'm going to unpack this vision. So let's jump into the details. First, what is it? Economy? It's a resource allocation system. How it works is that we have entities on the, let's say, on the left, right? And the entities are different. It could be people, could be states, could be firms, right? And what they do is, of course, they produce and they buy, other resources and goods, right? And they decide what to produce, what to buy, and the way they kind of reallocate those resources and goods and services between each other is through a market, right? And the market is on the right. Now, a very important point in economy is that it actually self-regulates through a key mechanism of supply and demand adjustments according to price. And the price, maybe a non-trivial observation about the price is that it is an emergent signal from the market that tells people and firms and states what to do, right? And exactly how they adjust demand and supply is basically according to this graph that I have there. If the demand is larger than supply, the price has to grow. If the supply is larger than demand, it's vice versa. The price goes down, and because it goes down, the supply and demand, they adjust. And that's how capitalism works, and that's why we live in capitalism. It's because it is the most efficient system that we know so far, right? But there is a catch, and the catch is, that we actually are not all rational agents. Or let me reframe it. We're rational, but only within the limits of our capacities. In particular, humans lack in discovery capacity, which, basically how we search, how we read. In cognitive capacity, how we analyze and process things. In coordination capacity as well, communication and commitment to action. For example, it's famous that a person cannot closely communicate with more than 150 people. And action capacity as well. Just the mere action that we can have during the day are pretty limited, right? So that's kind of the catch, and that's why a lot of challenges appear in our economy, be that asset bubbles, credit cycles, et cetera, et cetera. Principal agent problem is another one. And we posit that there's actually the technologies that we are witnessing right now, AI, crypto, they will actually solve these challenges. And so in particular, let's talk about AI. Well, the point about AI, in particular LLMs, that they all excel at these capacities. They truly are much better at these capacities than us. And that's why it's so, let's say, they found product market fit. We all use ChatGPT. All the companies try to integrate this into their workflow. And that's why AI and organizations, they truly are a match made in heaven, right? So essentially, let's think from a, let's say, academic standpoint, what does it really mean for economy if AI helps us to excel at all these capacities? Well, it means that our limits are further, we're almost unlimited, and as a result, we're more rational, right? So AI really enhances this cybernetic loop of capitalism from market to price to supply and demand adjustment. And the upshot is that actually AI supercharges the invisible hand of the market in cyber economy. And Adam Smith would be definitely very proud of us, right? But the interesting part, and what I wanted to actually talk more about today, is that this is only one side of the story, but there is actually a second side to the story of AI integrating into our economy. And the second side of the story has to do with market and what AI has to do with markets and how it actually improves it, right? So to unpack this, I want to introduce a new term called instrumented markets. So instrumented markets basically are markets that are programmatically accessible via trading API. And very good examples are stocks, hail rides, and many others as well, right? Those that you can access from your terminal. And as you can understand, if the market is instrumented, it's much more efficient because market makers can participate, and et cetera, et cetera. But there are also markets that are uninstrumented. And actually, there's a lot of markets that are uninstrumented, such as enterprise procurements, for example. Maybe a state does a tender to build a factory or something like that. Or micro tasks, like what we do on TaskRabbit. Well, I can go to TaskRabbit and find a person, but it's not fully instrumented, right? The specification is not complete there. It's very manual. And I want to tell you a story about balloons. For example, I did an experiment, and my daughter had a birthday, and I decided to order balloons for that birthday solely by ChatGPT. So I told the agent, okay, buy me balloons, and I gave him, some directions. And turns out that, and it did the work, actually, it ordered balloons, but they were not as good, okay? So some balloons were not exactly the ones that I wanted. It was pretty expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And so it wasn't really good, really the best. It was okay, but not the best. And I would say that the reason is because the balloon market is not instrumented, right? And what AI does, it actually instruments basically any market. That's the crazy part about AI. And the question is, okay, well, but how? How does it instrument? How exactly does it work from the, let's say, from a hands-on perspective, right? And the answer is intents, okay? Some of you are familiar with intents. because intents are ubiquitous in crypto, but actually this concept is very relevant to AI. And we call internally this an intent economy. And the simple workflow is like this. Let's say, an entity has a spec, right? And AI is able to read and understand this specification. And then from this specification, they extract intents, what exactly we want to do, right? After that, with constraints, by the way. Of course, it's not just I want to do something. There's a lot of constraints, et cetera, et cetera. And then a really important step is generating a local auction or maybe some other mechanism, okay? And this is what what is not there right now, like it doesn't exist, okay? We call it generative markets, and you can think of it as, for example, on the example of balloon, an AI would not just go to some websites and order balloons for me, but they would say, oh, okay, Artem wants to order these balloons with this and these constraints, and we're accepting applications, we're accepting bids for this. That's what they would do, okay? And then they would discover counterparties, maybe on other websites, maybe other agents would discover this local auction, right? And then once they discover counterparties, they would negotiate, and then they would commit. And they would commit to some contract, right? And, in parentheses, smart, because, of course, for agents, it's much easier to commit to a smart contract rather than legal contract. And then they execute, right? And as a last step, they obtain the verifiable outcome. And you can see that in this intent economy, it's very efficient. It's outcome-based. It's very focused on the delivery of what the user wants. And I'll touch on this a little bit later. But now I want to talk about what are the core components that we need to build in order for this to actually work. Because some steps there are still sci-fi. They don't exist right now. And the first is, well, for this to work, the AI needs to actually be aware of what they're doing. They need to be aware that they're coordinating economically with other agents, and they have different smart contracts and different, let's say, utility functions. They need to understand they need to negotiate. They need to understand that they have secrets, something they don't want to disclose, and something that they do want to disclose. And we internally call this mechanism-aware AI. And as far as I know, there's no existing, there's no mechanism-aware AI. I think it's an open direction both for research but also for startups as well. So that's the first one. B, a neutral environment, and with this we're all very familiar because the more neutral, the more permissionless is the environment, the better and the more efficient is the economic system that is built on top of it. And why does AI need it? Well, they need to express intents in this environment, transfer value on this substrate, and coordinate between each other. And blockchains is a perfect, has a product, I would say, product market fit actually here, because they can transfer value well by transfers and coordinate between each other using smart contracts. C, generative markets. They need to be able to generate smart contracts on the fly, to have auctions, to sell puts and futures, et cetera, to engage, for AI agents to engage between each other with economic contracts. And of course, they need identity and reputation, something that has been talked a lot on this conference, and privacy as well. So these are kind of core components. Let me do an upshot on this slide. The upshot is essentially, if I would characterize the economy that we have right now, I would call it attention economy. It's a popular term. Why? It's because it's in the incentive of all the apps and websites is to keep the user on the platform for as long as they can, to show them ads, essentially. That's the attention economy. And the point is that, well, with the introduction of agents, there's less and less eyes on websites and apps. There's less and less, demand for these banners. We cannot really show banners to agents, and that's why the payments protocols like X402 have a big promise, and that's why we think that the economy is transforming actually from attention to intention economy, or we call it intent economy. So yeah, and then there will be generative markets. So not only markets that exist already, but constant generation of local submarkets and local resolutions of intents. And this is, by the way, exists in crypto, of course. Every time, on CowSwap, you make an order. This is what happens. But the same must happen with AI agents. And the third point is, of course, we need rails to build all this, and blockchains provide these perfect rails. And I make a question mark here because actually this comes. If you think from first principles, the AI agents really do need some rails, right? They will operate in on some rails, and it's not a given, I would say, that blockchains will be the rails. It's right now because there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of things that don't work exactly like they should, and this is our call, I would say, in this from. Let's say from cyber.Fund's perspective, is that we think we need to shape actively cyber economy. And what does it mean? Well, let's step back. It's actually inevitable that we come to cybernetic economy. It's inevitable that this will happen. But the question is, will it happen in 100 years, or will it happen in 20 years? And what we will have to go through until we get there. So the path is up to us, whereas the goal, or so to speak, the destination is cyber economy, is inevitable. Okay, and when I talk about the path, it's like one might think, well, okay, does it really matter what path we take? And the answer is actually it does, because we can make a really painful detour into some economic equilibriums where we give up our data, we give up, for example, control for AGI to some states, et cetera, and become really cyber slaves. And cyber slaves is also this image or meme that we have internally that in some sense it doesn't exist right now, of course, but in some sense it does. So if you look at the data of how much people are looking at TikToks and really are on this dopamine loop, and it's hard for them to escape, it really does start to look a little bit like cyber slavery. But I would say, the potential for cyber slavery is even worse. So for us, it's important to be conscious about it and to accelerate towards open equilibria, where we prosper and we benefit humanity as much as possible. And so yeah, that's the main message. We choose to actively shape cyber economy, and we accelerate towards stable economic equilibriums, those where there is no let's say disbalance of power. Yeah, it shows that I have 2.5 minutes for some reason. All right, so yeah, that's it. All right, thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.